Hello everyone, this is part 34 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The dawn of day 5 came. While some teams relaxed and rested themselves, others still struggled to gain the scrolls they needed to advance to the third round. Currently, the teams that were in the base were Team 7, Team 8, Team Yugito, Team Fu, Team Gaara, and that team of Kumo Ninja who tried to take advantage of Team 7. Naruto made his way through the base to where the kitchen was so that he could get some breakfast. Sakura had insisted that she wanted to sleep in for the first time in ages, and Sasuke had disappeared, most likely with Kakashi to one of the dojos to train. Team 8, with the exception of Shino, was following Sakura's lead and getting in the first night of good sleep they had in weeks. Naruto figured he would find Sasuke and Kakashi and train after he got some food in his system. Upon arriving at the kitchen, Naruto noticed the two male members of the Taki team and their sensei. At first, he didn't think much of it, as he went on to make breakfast. Sadly, he wasn't able to have ramen, seeing as Sakura had confiscated it the night before and insisted he eat something healthy, or at least something besides ramen, for once. Naruto was busy enjoying a simple breakfast with some of the rice balls that he had sealed in the scroll, until the mood in the room froze. The three Taki ninjas' attention turned to the doorway of the kitchen, the same scornful look that had teased Naruto for his life, now on their face, only it wasn't directed towards him. The three Taki ninja picked up the breakfast and made their way out of the kitchen, past the green-haired teammate, who was the focus of their looks. On their way out, one of the genin gave her a hard nudge, more like a push, that sent her staggering a few steps. As Fu clenched her fist, her attention was drawn to the blonde in the room looking at her. "What do you want?" she asked angrily. "Can't stand me at all. Think I'm a nuisance who should just disappear like all the others?" What? Asked a now confused Naruto. "Forget it, what would you know? You're just like the rest of them anyways, except for Bug Boy from yesterday, but he just seemed creepy," said Fu. "You mean Shino, don't you?" replied Naruto, causing Fu to raise an eyebrow. "Anyways, I know what you're talking about. The way your team looks at you, hoping you would just vanish so that they wouldn't have to deal with you, hating your very existence. I know it seems impossible, thinking that no one cares for you, only wanting you gone from their lives. Impossible that there's never going to be someone who cares about you. And yet, you're stuck wondering why this happened to you. After all, you had no control over what happened, and the people can't seem to understand that you're just a lonely person looking for someone to call a friend." Fu stared in awe at the first person who managed to read her. "How?" asked Fu. "Because I know how it feels. I've lived my entire life with the villagers of Konoha hating me, wanting nothing more than for me to cease to exist," said Naruto, placing his hand over his stomach. "I know what you have sealed inside you. It can be either a curse or a blessing, depending on how you look at things. For me, it's a blessing. Sure, life's been hard, but everything I've accomplished up till now, every friend I've made, I feel like I've truly earned." "But how?" asked Fu. "You already have one person, or I guess demon in your case. They aren't what most people think. Try talking to her and you'll be surprised. Otherwise, never give up and do everything in your power to show people who you really are, not what they see you as. And once you form a bond with someone, do everything in your power to keep it going," explained Naruto, flashing Fu his signature grin. "I once had a bond with someone. Shibi, the previous leader of our village," said Fu. Naruto felt like he knew that name from somewhere. "That's right, that's the man Orochimaru came so that he could get to Sasuke. He was warm and kind, he cared for me and I saw him as a grandfather. But then he was taken by some freak and now his son, Shibuki, the new leader of the village, wants nothing to do with me. In fact, I overheard him hoping that I would manage to get myself K somehow in these exams." Naruto's fists clenched. He already was angry at Orochimaru for taking away the Sandaime, his grandfather figure, attacking Konoha, and a bunch of other things. Now he couldn't help but hate the snake more for taking away Fu's only human bond she had. "Listen to me on this. I know the man who killed your grandfather, Or at least the closest thing you had to one. He tried to take away one of my strongest bonds, and that was the reason he killed your Gigi. For that, I'm sorry. It's okay. Your village sent us a report implicating some guy called Orochimaru in the M of Gigi and using his image to lure your team into a trap, she said. But how did you save them? Shibi Gigi was the strongest ninja I knew and even he failed. If he failed, then how did you make it? Because I believed in my strength and my friend's strength. I had already lost my Gigi to the same snake and I'll be damned if I let him take anything else, said Naruto. It's my Nindo. To never go back on my word. To become stronger to protect those bonds that I have worked so hard to achieve. If I may ask, who was your Gigi? Asked Fu. He was the Hokage, or at least the previous one. He was the one who watched over me as a child and the one who was there for me, said Naruto. When everyone else wanted to see me vanish, he was there to comfort me. Shibi sounds a lot like the Hokage, and if I know him like I knew the Hokage Gigi, then he wouldn't want you to suffer like this. He would want you to try and make friends, well at least more friends anyways. What are you talking about? There's no one in Taki who will be my friend, said Fu. That doesn't mean you should give up. Someone's bound to come through eventually. Besides, you've already got a friend in me and Shino. I know he may seem a little creepy at first, but he's really a great guy and he's there when you need him, explained Naruto. And if you want another friend, try talking to Chome. Oh, and if you do, tell her Kurama says hi. Now I'm sorry but I've got to go find the rest of my team, the exam's not quite over yet. As Naruto left to go search for Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke, Fu was left wondering. She made her way back to the room she had been assigned, thinking on everything the blonde had said. Perhaps she should go talk to Shino and see if he really wanted to be her friend. Speaking of talking to friends, who was Chome? Suddenly, Fu couldn't help it as she slipped into unconsciousness. Naruto wandered his way through the lower level of the base, hoping to find Sasuke or Kakashi-sensei. He had been spending 15 minutes going from training room to training room, there really were a lot of them on that level, until he heard an explosion come from one. He entered the room just in time to avoid a blast of lightning from Sasuke as it collided into the chakra-reinforced target next to the door he entered through. Hey Dobe, watch it, called out Sasuke. What did you mean, watch it? Why don't you watch where you're aiming? Shouted Naruto. Kakashi was immediately defusing the situation, blaming it on faulty placement of the target. Anyways, I'm surprised and impressed that you managed to get that jutsu, said Kakashi. Huh, it sounds like you know it, said Sasuke. I do. It's a jutsu that a clan in Iwa guarded closely due to its power. However, in terms of power, I would say Chidori either matches it or is a little stronger as you were able to stop it with said jutsu. I will say that's one jutsu we've been trying to get from Iwa for years now, but it seems like you've done the work for us, said Kakashi. Seriously, it's like none of them have ever fought the Sharingan before, said Sasuke. Kakashi chuckled a bit at that. Anyways, what's up Naruto? Nothing much, I've got nothing better to do, said Naruto. That's why I always carry a book on me. Never know when you're going to have nothing to do, said Kakashi, holding up the latest Ika. Well, I do have my great-grandfather's book, but I've already looked through it and well, there's not really much in it. It looks as if it should have a lot of sealing knowledge in it, but there's nothing besides different types of sealing written on the pages, said Naruto, pulling out an old black book, about the same size as Kakashi's Ika, and having an Uzumaki swirl on the cover. Naruto flipped through the pages, showing Kakashi exactly what he meant. All that were written on the pages were letters such as barrier seals, amplification seals, and other types of seals, but nothing else. Ow! Spat Naruto as he nicked the side of his finger on one of the pages. Quit complaining, it's only a paper C, said Sasuke. Naruto watched as a single drop of B managed to trickle out of the C before it healed itself. The B ran down his finger and dripped onto the page that he had opened. Naruto jumped back, dropping the book when a seal on said page lit up and a large scroll, about the size of the forbidden scroll, puffed. Well, what did ya know? A B seal, said Kakashi, almost in an I told you so fashion. Well, at least we know one thing for sure, you are an Uzumaki, otherwise you wouldn't have been able to get past that B seal. Kakashi, who exactly are the Uzumaki? Asked Sasuke. You mean you don't know? asked Kakashi in slight disbelief. You were supposed to learn this back in the academy, as the Uzumaki had a huge part in the founding of Konoha. Wait, you mean the Uzumakis helped found Konoha with my ancestors and the Senju? Then why haven't I heard of the clan? Asked Sasuke. Because they weren't in Konoha. They had their own village called Azushiogakur no Sato. That's where Ero Sennin and I went while you were getting private training from Kakashi, said Naruto. This was where Kakashi took over. The Uzumaki were responsible for aiding the Senju and Uchiha in the formation of Konoha. It is believed that without them, Konoha would have never been formed, which is also one reason why we wear the Uzumaki spiral on the back of our standard uniform. As for who exactly they are, well, I would have to go all the way back to the legends surrounding the Sage of the Six Paths, said Kakashi, until he stopped, his attention drawn towards the open door. Looks like we have a visitor. You know, you don't have to keep hiding like that from me anymore, called out Naruto, a smiling Hinata popping her head out from behind the door. But you guys sounded like you were discussing something important, replied Hinata, walking up next to Naruto. Besides, it's fun to see how close I can get. Well, it's not something that's really a secret, so you can join us if you want. But just answer this. Did you learn about the Uzumaki back in the academy? Asked Kakashi. There may have been a slight mention of the name, but nothing else. No history, no relations they had with Konoha, answered Hinata. Kakashi sighed. This really was supposed to be a major part of Konoha history. Anyways, the legend surrounding the sage states that he had two sons, the elder son who inherited the sage's eyes and youngest son who inherited the sage's body. Legend states that the elder son's descendants eventually formed the Uchiha clan while the younger son's descendants formed the Senju clan. I believe you know about that, Sasuke. Sasuke nodded, having been told about his clan history from his parents back when he was just a child. But somewhere down the line, before the Senju clan was formed, another line was formed which eventually became the Uzumaki clan. In a way, the Uzumakis are cousins of the Senju and distant relatives of the Uchiha. Now, the Uzumakis were an extremely powerful clan that were masters in various ninja arts, especially in taijutsu and kenjutsu. However, the area where they were most adept in was fuinjutsu. Kakashi, exactly how powerful were the Uzumaki? Asked Sasuke, needing to know that fact. Before you go asking me a ton of questions, realize that I'm not the best person to ask these questions to. Besides, this is something I'd rather not talk about while in the boundaries of Kumo. I promise if you have more questions, I'll answer them once we are in the security of Konoha. For now, just know that the Uzumakis were feared by many other nations for their prowess in fuinjutsu. As such, an alliance consisting of Kumo, Iwa, Kiri, and many other minor nations formed an alliance to wipe them out, which eventually started the Second Shinobi War. While destruction was inevitable, considering the size of the forces they were up against, the Uzumaki managed to see the invading forces in at least half. Half, said Naruto and Sasuke in surprise. The combined forces must have totaled at least 40,000, and for a single clan, which had maybe a few hundred members at the very most, to have eliminated tens of thousands of enemies at once, well, that was just unheard of. Yes, the other villages at that point had reason to fear the Uzumakis, and that was shown in the battles preceding the destruction of Azushiogakur, explained Kakashi. So where are they now? A clan that powerful, surely some had to survive, asked Sasuke. Only a few Uzumakis managed to escape. To the best of our knowledge, there are only two left. The one who nearly lost his head just a few minutes ago and one who managed to find her way into Orochimaru's service, said Kakashi. He looked over at Naruto, who was struggling to take this in and accept it. Kakashi placed a reassuring hand on Naruto's shoulder. I'm sorry, but that's the hard truth. Naruto, you're just like me. The last of a once great clan. I never imagined you'd be anything besides the dobe of the class. But yet, here you are, doing the impossible once again and proving yourself to be worthy of being my rival, thought Sasuke. If he thought he wanted to fight against Naruto before, now he was sure he wanted to fight against Naruto. If what Kakashi said was true, then the Uzumakis were the only clan besides the Senju who could match the Uchiha. It's okay, Kakashi-sensei. Ero Sennin already told me everything, said Naruto, regaining his cheerfulness. Hey Hinata, let's go and see what Morio Gigi put inside this book. Naruto took off out of the room, dragging Hinata behind him. Morio. I've heard that name before, but where? No. It can't be. Kakashi's visible eye shot wide open. Kakashi? Asked Sasuke, confused at his sensei's expression. It's nothing. Now why don't we see what the potential of that jutsu is now that we have any unnecessary casualties out of the way, said Kakashi. If that's who I think it is, then the Uzumaki heir still lives. Naruto had dragged Hinata back to the room he and Sasuke were sharing. Okay, let's see what Gigi has for us, shouted Naruto excitedly. Hinata just giggled at Naruto's enthusiasm. Naruto began flipping through the pages, wondering which type of seal he should start with. There. Those two would be incredibly useful for you in these campaigns, called Kurama from inside Naruto's head. Naruto flipped back through the book until he found the two types of seals that Kurama had mentioned. A grin plastered his face. These would be perfect. Hinata watched as Naruto unsealed two rather large, yes, large, scrolls from the book and took an initial look over them. About an hour later, his brain was on the border of brain-s as he tried to understand the incredibly complex seals written on the scrolls. Hinata had sadly given up trying to help after reading the first few lines and not being able to understand them at all. This is an Uzumaki seal, said Naruto in complete disbelief. The stuff Ero Sennin taught me doesn't even come close to the first few lines of this. There's no way, this is going to be impossible. Don't say that, Naruto, said Hinata from behind Naruto, resting her head over his shoulder. If anyone can do it, then it's you. You've always had a KNCK for doing the impossible. If I know you, you'll have those seals down in time for the third exam. You're right. I'm going to get these down, Tobayo, declared Naruto, only for his stomach to protest. After some dinner. I'm starving. It was now getting late in the afternoon as Naruto and Hinata made their way towards the kitchen for some food. On the way there, they passed another two Kumo teams and the Kiri team with the Rokubi Jinchuriki. The Kiri Jinchuriki sent a massive blast of K intent towards Naruto, who didn't even flinch as he had been trained by Kurama to withstand even a demon's ki. After a few moments of exchanging looks and ki, Naruto realized that there were other people in the room beginning to suffer the effects of Biju-backed ki and they separated. Ni-san, shouted a pleasantly surprised Hinata when Team Guy walked through the main doors with well, Guy. Hinata-sama, Naruto, responded Neji. Your youthful flames burn brighter than ever for you to have beaten us here. Shouted Lee. Yeah, especially considering we were the ones with more scrolls than you last time we met, said Tenten. Yeah, about that, just so you know, I'm not a clone so don't be throwing kunai at me this time, begged Naruto. This caused Tenten to laugh a little. Don't worry. Although we ended up running into a field with a lot of Iwa ninja and were hoping we could salvage a scroll from there, but they were all gone or half burned, said Tenten. Naruto responded with an innocent grin, which being Hyuga, Neji immediately caught. That was you, wasn't it? What? Both Tenten and Lee shouted in unison. Naruto sighed. Yeah, we were ambushed by a gang of about 15 Iwa ninja, I guess with some sort of grudge with Konoha from the last war. Unfortunately, it was either K or BK. There was an awkward moment of silence before Naruto's and Team Guy's stomachs began rumbling, prompting a bit of laughter from everyone. Suddenly, everyone's attention was turned to the newcomer in the room. Gaara, said Naruto. Every member of Team Guy was instantly on guard as Gaara approached them. Hello Naruto, said Gaara. He turned to Lee. It is good to see you here, Lee. Yosh. It is good to be here, shouted Lee. Suddenly, Gaara bowed at Lee. I sincerely apologize for what happened during our last meeting. This caught most of Team Guy off guard, except Neji, who still thought of Gaara as an unstable K. As evening came to an end and night slowly approached, Naruto and Hinata found their way out onto a balcony which had a brilliant view of the setting sun between two distant peaks. You know, it may not be as pretty as the sunset from the top of the Hokage Monument, but it's still pretty beautiful, commented Hinata, snuggling into Naruto. About 2 hours later, after a little bit of stargazing, Naruto found his way back to his room. He wanted to get a long rest for tomorrow as the second exam would be coming to a close in the middle of the afternoon that same day. There was a lot of teams occupying the base already, and even with the rumors of Kumo having a lot of participants in the third exam, this still seemed like a lot and he wanted to be well rested just in case a preliminary round came up like it did in the previous exams. Naruto finally managed to drift away into dreamland. Naruto awoke to find himself in some flame-lit corridor with a bowl of ramen, of all things, in his hand. It wasn't until he started to feel and look around that he realized that he was sitting on something big, furry, and kind of reddish-orange. Okay, where am I? Asked Naruto. About time you woke up. I was afraid you'd be sleep-eating ramen for another hour or two, called out a familiar voice. Huh, what are you doing here, Kurama? Asked Naruto. And where are we going? This is a rare occurrence, but it happens every now and then if enough of us are close by, said Kurama. What does? And who? Asked Naruto. Before he could get an answer, the corridor opened up into a large stone-lined chamber with a circular fuin pattern on the ground. I see, so this is your kitten, said another demonic voice. Naruto looked over towards one of the other corridors, only to see a blue flaming two-tailed cat, with a particular blonde girl wearing a night robe on top of the cat's head. I thought he'd be a little bit bigger than that. It's not my fault that his ramen obsession has prevented him from getting the proper nutrition to grow at a normal rate, retorted Kurama. Another voice was heard from another corridor and Kurama swore under his breath. Woohoo! That was a wonderful night of K. You should have seen the looks on those mist humans' faces. Oh, and what about those pathetic Kumo humans? I think I set a new time record K them. Shukaku appeared out of said corridor, with Gaara sitting on top of his head in a cross-legged position as if he was meditating. "UK my comrades," shouted Yugito with venom in her voice. "Oh man, it was a blast," replied Shukaku. "Hey Foxy, nice seeing you here. How many did you manage to K?" Gaara merely sighed. He had tried to awaken himself from meditation. Gaara can't sleep so he meditates instead, but sadly it appeared as if he was stuck with the Shukaku's K rants for the night. However, it got better once he noticed that Naruto and another person, who he recognized as the girl who prevented him from K Naruto during the first exams, were there as well. What was even more surprising was the presence of two other Biju. 15, replied Kurama. Shukaku's jaw nearly dropped, having been bested in the K count. What? You K 15 people in this exam? Asked Yugito, turning her attention to Naruto. In my defense, they were Iwa Ninja who attacked my team first. Although there is a Kumo team I wouldn't mind beating up a little when they tried to K us while we were evacuating a few injured comrades who had an unfortunate run-in with the Rokubi's Jinchuriki, defended Naruto. Oh, they were just Iwa. Then never mind, said Yugito. No one likes Iwa. This earned a laugh out of Naruto. Oi Foxy, how about letting me K that brat of yours? You K mine, I K yours and we go on a rampage like good old times, offered Shukaku. How about I take that tail of yours and shove it up your A? You should know better than the rest of us that we can't K our Jinchuriki while in here. Besides, if anyone even thinks about K my kit, then they'll be finding themselves tailless, threatened Kurama as Shukaku cringed and Matatabi let out a sigh. Have they always been like this? Asked Yugito. The Nibby sadly nodded. Well, I never thought I'd see the day when Kurama, of all Biju, would grow fond of his host, said another demonic voice as it emerged from yet another tunnel. Everyone's attention turned to see a rather large bull-out-of octopus emerge from the tunnel, with the one and only KB riding atop its head. Figured I'd try something new for once, Gyuki. It gets boring being sealed for 100 years, I need something to entertain myself. Besides, there's just something about this kit, replied Kurama. Plus, I've heard what you have to put up with, and I'll take this blonde brat any day. Kurama burst out into laughter as the Hachibi's sweat dropped. So can anyone answer my question? What's going on here? Asked Naruto once again. Every now and then, the Biju meet up again. Talk, chat, and listen to the K-beats of KB. Bakayaro Konayaro. Rapped B. A few people out off demons let out a sigh. 4 of you. It's my lucky day. First my human finally decides to talk to me and now I get to see a few friendly, and one, B-face, said the Nanabi as it flew down from what appeared to be a large hole in the ceiling. Thank you, I do my best to keep up my appearance, said the Shukaku, responding to the B-face comment. Hey Fu. shouted Naruto, greeting his newest friend. Needless to say, the green-haired Jinchuriki couldn't help but feel surprised that Naruto, the blonde she had met earlier that day, was in the middle of a room where demons were meeting with one another, although that did explain a lot. UHG, what's that smell? Asked Yugito as she began coughing. So did a few of the other Jinchuriki. Saiken, can you keep your gas to yourself? Asked the Nanabi, using her wings to blow away the mist. Sorry, but so many Jinchuriki makes me want to K, especially that one, the giant slug said, pointing at Naruto. Stealing those K was a bad move, brat. I'm going to take extra pleasure in watching you suffer the next time we meet. And trust me, we will, said the Kiri Jinchuriki. What the hell is wrong with you? Shouted Naruto. All this K. I'm only going to say this once, you touch my friends, and I'll kick your Gaara took a look at the Rokubi's Jinchuriki and saw the bee in his eyes. He was just like how Gaara used to be, only wanting to K. No, something was different about this guy. His eyes were cold, no warmth existed inside this man at all. It's like his heart had been melted away by all the acid he has been exposed to. He showed no remorse for any of his actions. In fact, he rather enjoyed doing it. This was a man who had gone even further into the darkness, farther than he had ever gone, and probably too far to come back. Su, Ichi, Ni, Roku, Nana, Hachi, Q. There are 6 of us here, more than there usually is, said Kurama. Yeah, I guess these Chunin exams that the humans hold at least served some benefit in bringing us together again, said Matatabi. This has happened before? Asked Naruto. As I said, this is a rare occasion, but it does happen. When there are a few of us around and we are all in the same state of mind, we can enter a certain level of the subconsciousness where we can talk with one another, explained Naruto. Some time passed which really consisted of the Biju who were present catching up with one another and simply talking and catching up. Some insults were exchanged, particularly between Kurama and Shunkaku and also Saiken and most of the other Biju, but the conversations remained at least somewhat civilized, about as civilized as you can imagine with 6 demons present. Looks like our time is coming to an end, said Gyuki as he and a lot of the other Biju began to feel themselves fade out of the subconsciousness. Before they could leave, Naruto managed to say one last thing. Be careful. There is a group known as Akatsuki that's going to be coming after all of us in a few years, said Naruto. Why are they targeting us? Asked Gaara. I don't know. Ero Sennin and I encountered 2 of them a few months back and all I know is that they were pretty powerful and they wanted the Biju for some reason, but I don't really know why, explained Naruto. Naruto was just barely able to finish his warning before everyone faded from the subconsciousness. About a half hour before the exams were scheduled to end, everyone in the base made their way to the largest dojo in the base at the bottom floor. It looked somewhat similar to the same arena inside the tower in the Forest of Death as it had a large floor and a few raised platforms. Looking around the room, there was a rather large number of teams with their respective senseis and village officials up front standing behind the rakeage. Teams 7, 8, and Guy from Konoha, Gaara and his siblings from Suna, Fu and her team from Taki, the Mist team, and 5 Kumo teams made up the current count, but with some time still left on the clocks, it was still possible another team could still make it in time. Speaking of which, a few minutes before the exam ended, Team 10 managed to drag themselves into the dojo, bruised and battered, but they were there. As of now, the second round of the Chunin exams is officially over, announced Darui, who had taken over as proctor for B, after B's attempted concert. Darui made his way over to the rakeage to discuss the next step. There are quite a few of them. What do you think? He asked. Grunted the rakeage. 5 of our teams, that's pretty good, but I see Konoha has 4. I was expecting 1, maybe 2, but not 4. There are too many. I see. Shall we do a preliminary round then? Asked Darui. Yes, we should be able to eliminate most of the campaign for our Chunin hopefuls in the final round, said the rakeage. I understand, boss, said Darui before turning around to the rest of the field. I congratulate all 36 of you for passing the second round. It is at this time that I am sorry to inform you that you are not quite finished yet. What do you mean, not finished? Asked a Kumo ninja. Most of the ninja, especially those from Konoha and Suna, knew what was going to happen next, having already experienced something like this. I mean, 36 is an extremely high number to be advancing onto the next round. The third exam will be consisting of one-on-one matches where you will be fighting in front of crowds that include judges and lords. Because of this, the last thing we want to do is waste the lord's time with frivolous matches, and 18 matches would be quite a lot. A normal round of fighting consists of between 7 to 10 matches for us, so that means that one round of preliminary matches should be sufficient to reduce the numbers, explained Darui. Reduce the numbers? Questioned another of the Kumo ninja. We've worked hard to complete this exam and we've earned our spot in the third round. While that may be true, we make the rules here. As such, we have decided that there are simply too many of you to have an exciting third round, said Darui. Some took this as an insult that they were too boring or not worth the time, while others who were familiar with this just sighed at the rookies' antics. Now, for those of you who should manage to advance to the third round, you will have 2 chances to convince the judges that you have the skills worthy of a chunin. The first round of matches will be held 4 weeks from now, while the second round of matches will occur 3 days after the first round. For those of you who are able to fight after the first round, you will have a second chance to impress the judges. It does not matter if you win or lose the first match, so long as you can fight. For those of you who make their way into the third round, your first matches will be announced after we have narrowed down the field. So how are we determining who we fight in these preliminary matches? Asked Neji, wanting to avoid any more complaining. These matches will be chosen by random, with the winner advancing and the loser not advancing. Now, before we begin, are there any other questions? Asked Darui. There were a few questions from some of the newer ninja to this scenario, basically about what would end a match and other basic stuff. If all the questions are over, those of you who do not wish to continue can forfeit now. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to bow out, said a younger-looking Kumo ninja who had a bandaged-up leg and arm. Unfortunately, my arm and leg are in no condition to fight. Very well, probably a smart move, said Darui. He asked around for any other volunteers, but when no others raised their hands, he proceeded. Now, seeing as we have an odd number, you will draw slips to determine who gets the bye. B came around with a box that contained mostly blank slips and one with a red dot on it. The one who drew the red dot would be the one with the bye. Ninja after ninja, a blank sheet was drawn until it came to Lee. Rock Lee, Konoha Genin, you will be given a bye, announced Darui. Lee began to shiver. No, I do not accept this. Please take this unyouthful piece of paper away from me, shouted Lee, shoving the paper back at B. Boss, what do we do? Asked Darui. I don't know, said the Raikage in disbelief. He had never seen anyone pass up a free ride to the finals before. I guess if he wants to risk his chance in a fight, let him. Very well, we will redo the drawing, announced Darui. Before walking away, B held out his fist to Lee, motioning for the green-clad Genin to pound fists. I like your style, commented B before walking away. Lee looked up towards Guy, who responded with a thumbs up and a smile. After the second round of drawings, the bye fell on Omoi of Kumo, who accepted the bye. If you will turn your attention to the screen, we will then select the matches, announced Darui. As the screen flickered through names, thoughts were racing. Sasuke and Lee were hoping for their matches to be soon, Naruto was hoping any of his friends didn't get matched up against the Kiri Jinchuriki, Sakura was hoping for a particular blonde, and Shino was rather indifferent. Match 1, Xiaomi vs Hyuga Hinata. Naruto let out a long-held breath, well, not really that long since it is only the first match. Hinata had avoided a fight with that Kiri Jinchuriki, or any other Jinchuriki for that matter, and he wouldn't have to worry about her match-up for much longer. Everyone besides Hinata and the Kumo Kunoiki called Xiaomi were ordered to move to the upper platforms to observe. Good luck, Haim, Naruto whispered into Hinata's ear before. Hinata shot Naruto a reassuring smile before facing her opponent. Xiaomi was a Kunoiki from Kumo who was maybe a few inches taller than Hinata and probably a few years older than her as well. As Darui signaled for the match to begin, Hinata assumed the standard Yukan stance. Hinata made the first move, taking off at a rather high speed towards her opponent. As Hinata approached her opponent, Xiaomi merely vanished, causing Hinata to stop her assault. What's going on? Where'd she go? Asked Kiba. Genjutsu, replied Kurenai, Kakashi, Asuma, Guy, Sakura, Shino, Sasuke, Neji, Ino, Chuji, Shinji, and Tenten all in unison. Naruto would reply, but he was immune to the genjutsu thanks to the furball that lived in his head. Yeah, I knew that, I was just making sure you all did, replied Kiba, trying to save face. Hinata felt a kunai press up against her as Xiaomi came up from behind. I suggest you surrender before I sever that cute little head of yours from the rest of your body. Pathetic, said Shinji. I can't believe she let someone sneak up behind her. She has the Byakugan after all. You are in my field of divination, called out a voice from behind Xiaomi. What? She said, quickly the knife through her captive's only for it to disappear in a puff of smoke. Yukan, 8 trigrams, 64 palms, shouted Hinata as she went to work on her opponent. 64 rapid strikes later, Xiaomi collapsed to the ground, unable to move as a good portion of her chakra system had been disabled. Winner, Hyuga Hinata, announced Darui. Where did she learn how to use shadow clones? Asked a surprised Kurenai. Everyone's attention drifted to an innocent-looking blonde with his hand behind his head. Ero Senin kind of had me teach it to her a few months ago, replied Naruto. Hey, great job Hinata. Thank you, Naruto, replied Hinata as she blushed slightly and pressed her fingers together. I could have defeated her earlier, but I felt like working on my shadow clone diversions. Shinji spat at this as everyone looked up at the board for the next match. Match 2, Yakuro of Kumogyo vs. Takaru of Takagakure. The leader of the group of Kumo ninja who scammed a scroll of Team 7 and tried to K them took the arena as Takaru, one of Fu's teammates did the same. As Darui signaled the beginning of the fight, it became obvious that Yakuro had the clear advantage of being both faster and more skilled. Unfortunately, this was normally the case when pitting a major village versus a minor village. The battle was over in a few minutes. Sasuke had been watching the battle with his Sharingan. In fact, he was going to watch every battle with his Sharingan with hopes of picking up something useful. Anyways, while it was clear that Yakuro was a lightning user, like a good majority of Kumo ninja, there wasn't much Sasuke was able to get out of that match. Yakuro had managed to defeat Takaru using mostly taijutsu and kenjutsu, with a small C-rank lightning jutsu to shock Takaru when he used a water jutsu. Sasuke took a look up towards the boar and smirked. Match 3, Uchiha Sasuke of Konoha vs. Hami of Kumogakure. Perfect, thought Sasuke. If there was anyone he wanted to kick right now, it was one of those 3 Kumo ninja they ran into during the survival exercise. Well, if it isn't one of the pathetic weaklings from the mountain. I guess I really was meant to kick Yura, said the Kumo Kunoiki as she unsheathed her own sword. Too bad, you're actually kind of handsome. This caused an uproar with both Sakura and Ino, although Sakura was able to keep herself under control, except for the kick her Sasuke. Sakura shouted. Sasuke looked at his opponent, staring at her with his red eyes. Hami was the first to make a move, running at Sasuke. She took a few swings at Sasuke with her sword, who easily dodged them, being able to see where her attacks would land with his Sharingan. Cloud style, crescent moon S. Called out Hami as she swung her sword in a crescent moon-shaped arc at Sasuke. Much to her dismay, Sasuke dodged the strike without much effort. Is that really the best you have? Mocked Sasuke. He looked at her eyes. They were angry and he was correct. Sasuke sighed. Such a disappointment. And here I was hoping to get something useful out of this fight. Oh well, at the very least I can give this a try. Kaiten, flame step. As Sasuke completed his jutsu, flames swirled around his legs about halfway up his thighs. Sasuke ran towards Hami at a surprising speed, leaving a trail of fire in his wake. She swung with her sword again, hoping to intercept Sasuke, but once again he simply ducked underneath it. Before she could react to his next move, Sasuke was right beneath her as he sent a fire-laced kick up into her gut, sending her into the air with an explosion of fire. From there, he went into the motions for the lion's barrage with each kick emanating a blast of flames that caused Hami to cringe at the burning sensation. As Hami landed hard on her back, Sasuke let out one more roar. Flaming lion's barrage. He shouted, his foot into Hami's stomach, resulting in the largest eruption of flames. A few medics came onto the field to check Hami's condition. She was alive, but a few broken bones and some severe burns would earn her a lot of time in the hospital. Darui sighed. Winner, Uchiha Sasuke. The Raikage clenched his fist and a few people could feel the tension in the room already. These preliminaries were meant to eliminate the excessive amounts of Konoha shinobi, not his own shinobi. Already Kumo was 1-2 and Konoha was 2-0. We should have just put them out of their misery in the second exam, said Sasuke, walking back up towards the balcony. Sadly, you're right. That looked too easy, said Naruto. Oh well, that just means that they really weren't ready. I mean, after all, they had to attack us when we were carrying injured comrades. How low can you get? Replied Sasuke. Okay, me next, shouted Naruto. Come on. Damn. Match 4, Boruto of Kumo vs. Gaara of Suna. Oh well, at least we get to watch Gaara, thought Naruto. This should be quick, commented Kankuro. Indeed it was. It only took a minute or so before Gaara had Boruto wrapped up in a sand cocoon with a large lance of sand pressed up against his face. Not wanting to spill any more beer in this tournament, Gaara was giving the Kumo genin a chance to forfeit. About 6 months earlier, Kankuro and Temari would have taken their brother to a psychiatric clinic for mental evaluations after he spared someone. Darui sighed as he could feel just a little more pressure be added to the room by the Raikage. We had better begin winning matches soon or boss is going to lose it, Darui thought. Yosh. If I am not next, then I will do 500 push-ups, and if I am not next after that, I will run 300 times up and down the mountain on one hand. Shouted Lee. Ridiculous, replied Neji as Tenten's head dropped at her teammates' antics. Match 5, Aberrane Shino of Konoha vs Kankuro of Suna. It appears as if we are next, said Shino, turning to Kankuro. 1, 2, 3, counted Lee as he dropped to the ground and began doing push-ups, earning a look from most of the people on the balcony. Shino and Kankuro made their way to the floor. As the match began, Shino and Kankuro both just stood there, hands in their pockets and not really doing much. Oh, get on with it already, shouted Temari from the balcony after about a 5-minute starring contest. Troublesome woman, commented Shikamaru, who had also taken a spot on the balcony next to his team. What did you say, pineapple head? Responded Temari. Shikamaru just sighed. Yep, troublesome indeed. Back in the arena, Shino raised his arms as his swarm of insects came out as Kankuro made a few movements with his arms and his puppets emerged from the bundle. With a few motions of his fingers, Kankuro's puppet, Crow darted towards Shino, driving its fist into the ground where Shino once stood. Shino just barely jumped out of the way to avoid the dagger that had popped out of Crow's hand. As Shino jumped back, Crow shot a few daggers out of its mouth at the bug user, which found their target in Shino's shoulder. There is poison on these daggers. My insects should be able to neutralize most of it, but I cannot let any more get to me, thought Shino. Crow came at Shino again, as the bug user put up a screen of bugs to obscure Kankuro's vision. As such, Kankuro switched from AS with Crow to AS. The S opened a temporary window in the barrier of insects. When Kankuro could see Shino, if even for just a second, he had Crow launch some more daggers towards Shino, who was forced to take another step back. Kankuro smirked as he made a flick with another finger and from behind Shino, his second puppet, Red Ant, appeared with its central compartment open as it swallowed Shino. I strongly recommend forfeiting if you don't want to end up a stuck bug, said Kankuro. Temari face-palmed herself from the balcony. Don't even get started on the puns already, shouted Temari. Why, am I bugging you? Joked Kankuro. Temari clenched her fist and a tick mark appeared on her forehead. I would forfeit, but it does not appear as if you have captured me, said Shino as he emerged from the cloud of insects that was still hovering around Crow. Kankuro looked over in surprise to Red Ant to see numerous insects pouring out of the openings in the puppet as Red Ant collapsed to the ground after Shino's bugs severed the chakra strings on it. A few seconds later, Crow met the same fate and Shino turned his swarm on Kankuro. I believe it is you who should forfeit now. Swore Kankuro. Shino had him. Fine, I give. Smart choice, said Shino as he recalled his swarm. Winner, Aberrane Shino, announced Darui. At this time, Lee was finishing with his set of push-ups. Way to go Shino, shouted Kiba and Naruto from the stands as the rest of the Konoha squad sent him either a congratulatory look. While this match didn't increase the Raikage's frustration, it certainly didn't help as Konoha now had 3 participants in the finals. Everyone looked anxiously at the board, waiting for the next pairing. Yosh! It is time for my youth to shine! Shouted Lee. Match 6, Ridger of Kirigakure vs. Rock Lee of Konoha. Naruto began to sweat a little, but thankfully his worries were settled when he saw one of the Kiri Jinchuriki's teammates move towards the arena. The last thing he needed was for Lee to go from almost being K by one Jinchuriki to almost being K by another. Lee and his opponent entered the arena. Lee took his stance as Darui called for the start of the match. Immediately, Lee was off. Lee lashed out a strong kick at Rya's side. The Mist Ninja had just enough time to grab the pair of steel tonfas that he had on his back to block Lee's kick. Still, Ridger found himself forced back a few meters. Damn kid, you've got some strength in that kick, I'll give you that, but you're going to need more than just that kick to beat me, said Ridger. Ninja art, water tonfas. Rya's tonfas soon became encased in water, which added to their power and added a more potent point at the end of the weapons. Lee and Ridger spent the next few minutes trading blows. Neither of them landed any serious blows, but they did manage a few glancing blows which had an increased impact on each other due to the nature of their attacks. For Lee, one thing was sure, this Kiri opponent wasn't like some of the other opponents in the previous matches. This guy actually had a decent skill at being a close-quarters fighter. Please forgive me Guy-sensei, but it is my best option for winning this, thought Lee, glancing up at his sensei. In the stands, Guy caught Lee's eye and instantly knew what his student was thinking. Guy nodded back to his student, a little reluctantly. A normal frontal lotus with only one gate, Lee could handle without much repercussions besides the normal fatigue, so long as he got some proper rest afterwards. So long as this guy wasn't like Gaara, the frontal lotus would be enough. Lee unraveled some of his bandages from his arms, causing a few eyebrows to be raised in the stands, and he mentally unlocked the first of the 8 celestial gates. With an increased boost of speed, Lee dashed towards his opponent, who thrust his weapons out in front of him, hoping to catch Lee. However, Lee disappeared from in front of Ridger, only to knock him up into the air with a strong, unsuspecting kick from below to the chin. Lee then shadowed the floating Ridger and his bandages encased the shocked Kiri Genin. Primary Lotus, shouted Lee as he barreled down towards the ground, the encased Ridger into the ground. When the dust cleared, Ridger laid on the ground, unconscious and most likely with a rather large concussion. Winner, Rock Lee, announced Darui. Yeah, way to go Lee, shouted a few of his friends from the balcony, mainly Tenten and Sakura. Yes, Guy-sensei, how was that? Shouted Lee. Lee, I'm so proud, shouted Guy. Guy-sensei, Lee, Guy-sensei, Lee. Lee jumped up onto the balcony and embraced his sensei in a manly hug with the ocean sunset as the backdrop. A few of the non-Konoha ninja tried desperately to release this horrendous genjutsu that had been cast on them. It's not going to work, said Naruto, turning to Yugito's team, who was standing near the Konoha group. It's not a genjutsu, come to think of it, I don't think anyone's really sure what it is. The best way to describe it is the flames of youth, said Tenten. After the shuddering ceased from the rest of the ninja present and Guy and Lee finished, everyone looked up at the board. Ha! This is perfect, now Sasuke will see just how great I am. And once I win, Sasuke will practically beg me to be his girlfriend, no, wife. Squealed Ino. Naruto and Sasuke looked over at Sakura who was gripping the railing tightly. Sakura, are you okay? Asked Naruto. Yeah, I'll be fine. I need to do this, for Ino's sake, said Sakura as she removed her hand from the railing. The railing was crushed where Sakura's hand had been. It's about time she begins to blossom, and for the most beautiful flowers to blossom, they have to endure the harshest of winters. I was hoping for this to come, but I never imagined it would happen again. Perhaps it was fate, commented Neji. We're not starting with the fate crap again, are we Neji? Shouted Naruto. Neji merely chuckled. Hey billboard brow, get your Sorya down here so I can kick it. Shouted Ino. Go do what you need to do, Sakura, said Sasuke. Sakura nodded. Just don't overdo it. Oh, I plan to, replied Sakura. Match 7, Haruno Sakura of Konoha vs. Yamanaka Ino of Konoha. Jutsu. Kaiten, Flame Step, a simple fire jutsu where the user surrounds a part of their body, usually the feet and legs, with fire chakra. While it is simple, it is effective in close combat, allowing the user to strike with fire-based blows. Rank C. Uses Uchiha Sasuke. Flaming Lion's Barrage, a combination taijutsu technique where Sasuke performs his Lion's Barrage in conjunction with the Kaiten, Flame Step. Rank B. Uses Uchiha Sasuke. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.